Hello everyone, Amer back with another Mission Impossible episode review. We're starting Season 6 now, so let's get on with it. We've got Episode 1, which is called Blind. This one starts out with a cold open, as we had in most of the Season 5 episodes. A guy goes into a building where another man seems to be setting up some sort of bomb. Hearing footsteps, the bomber dashes off, and the first guy is caught in the explosion and blinded. We cut to Jim, who's driving a hardtop car this time. I don't know what happened to all the convertibles, and gets his instructions inside a building elevator. The blinded man was federal agent Warren Hayes, who was investigating the operation of mobster John Lawton. He's called Lawson by the voice on tape, but Lawton in the rest of the episode. It's kind of weird. There's also discussion of Lawton's lieutenants, Carl Dietrich, and his business advisor, Henry Matula, who is actually also an undercover federal agent. The mission is to keep Matula's secret quiet and have him moved up in the organization. The IMF, with the addition of new regular female agent Casey, played by Linda Day George, visits Hayes in the hospital. Jim says as part of their plan, they're going to have him, Jim, become Hayes, putting a very negative service record on him, including being drunk on the fateful night of the explosion as part of the charade. A doctor prepares Jim to be fitted with special appliances to make him temporarily blind, to be convincing to the mobsters. Lawton's organization has a meeting, which looks like a regular business meeting of a board of directors. It's kind of weird. And they talk about why there was a federal agent in one of their operations in the first place, with rivals Dietrich and Matula needling each other about it. Lawton says he wants them all in the organization to be uncovered pronto. Blind and somewhat sloshed Jim goes to a tavern where Lawton's meeting with some people, bumps into one of Dietrich's men, Johnny Brown, but is rescued and brought over to the bar by nearby Willie. When Jim doesn't have enough money for drinks, he gets loud and boisterous, telling everybody, "I was a former federal agent, I'm Warren Hayes," and Lawton's table overhears as he's taken out. Lawton tells Brown to go after Jim to see if he can find anything out, and Barney arrives as new man in the organization, Anderson. Jim goes to his rooming house and is oriented by landlady Casey. Brown overhears their staged conversation about Jim's rent not being paid, and Casey giving him a couple more days to get his act together. Brown returns to the tavern, eyeing Barney warily, and tells everyone what he heard. Lawton agrees with Matula that they should see if Hayes can provide them with some information and maybe he can be of use to them. Brown rents a room in Casey's home and starts trailing Jim around, confirming his predicament as a hopeless drunk. Johnny helps Casey fix a light, and then they hear Jim in his room, yelling and going through withdrawal and delirium tremens. Lawton reports to Dietrich, who's still hesitant to get involved with Hayes because he's a cop. Once a cop, always a cop, he figures. Dietrich even lies to Lawton about knowing anything until lunch the next day, where Lawton decides that Jim should be tested to see if they can work with him. The next day, Jim has no cash for liquor and stages the absolutely worst choreographed accident with Cabby Willie I have ever seen in my life. Anyway, Brown helps him over to a bench and says landlady Casey told him his sob story. He gives Jim a couple of dollars, but says he could earn $500 if he can find out the name of the agent who replaced him. Jim discusses the situation with Casey and Willie, figuring that they must already know the name and Lawton's just testing him, but it will have to be done without the knowledge and cooperation of the police, and it'll have to look good. He tells Johnny he'll do it, but will need help to see. Johnny agrees to be his eyes. They sneak into the building and manage to avoid the guard while he feeds his cat and get to the computer room, where Jim types some commands to get a coded designation, which he then feeds into another machine, getting the name. The guard overhears some of the noise through a vent and finds the two as they head out of the room and down a stairwell, but Jim trips over the cat on the way out, and Johnny has to basically push him out the window to escape. Jim presents the information to Lawton the next day and is asked as expected to take the job to uncover the mole. Lawton's group comes in and meets Jim, with Dietrich refusing to shake his hand. At Casey's place, she invites Johnny to have a drink and signals Jim to come home. He does, giving Casey the rent for the month and asking her out to dinner. She declines, saying she's already been asked by Johnny, who Jim calls a cheap hood, because he's not supposed to know that Johnny's there. Casey offers a rain check. Jim tells her about the new job he got, calling it research, and saying he intends to drag it out as long as possible, leading Johnny to call Dietrich. The two confront Jim about what he said and realize that this was all part of his plan to get cash out of the organization by playing Lawton. Dietrich offers Jim $25,000 to finger Metula as the mole, and Dietrich says he'll make arrangements at the warehouse to make it happen. Dietrich confides to Brown that if Jim double-crosses him, it'll be easy to kill him at the warehouse. Lawton prepares to leave and go to the warehouse, but Metula says he needs to tell him some urgent information first. One of Dietrich's other men comes to drive Jim to the warehouse. Dietrich puts Jim in a chair as Lawton pulls up with Metula and Barney. Barney, outside, disarms Dietrich's man, while Jim, inside, tells Lawton that Metula's a mole. Lawton opens a briefcase with Metula's information, the tape of Dietrich making Jim the offer earlier. Willie taped the conversation. Lawton fires Dietrich and says Metula's moving up, and Dietrich calls on Johnny, who opens fire with his gun and hits Lawton in the shoulder. Dietrich is killed in the fracas. Brown targets a helpless Jim, toying with him, but fortunately Barney is able to take Brown out. Metula tells Barney to take care of Jim while he leads Lawton away. A gunshot is heard for the benefit of Lawton. Jim gets the implants removed and returns to normal. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of C+. I actually had it rated much higher during my first go-round, but I noted a lot of things on rewatch, so I'll just go through them. Starting with the good. I think this is obviously a very great episode for Peter Graves from an acting perspective. His portrayal of a blind person is excellent. His portrayal of an alcoholic going through delirium is also quite good. Visually, the stuff that he does with Johnny, like the getting around in the police station or whatever, wherever they are, to get the information, the name that Lawton is looking for, that's really good. The only bad part was the accident scene. It's so obvious that the car, like Willie's taxi, is like at least a solid few meters away from Jim, and Jim just takes a fall. That was pretty pathetic. But other than that, everything that Peter Graves does in this episode is fantastic. Also, the guest stars. I've mentioned that Jason Evers, anytime he's on an episode, it's going to be good. This one is not. This one's a little bit of an exception in a sense. C+ is the best that I can give it, but certainly Jason Evers holds his own. Peter Brown as Johnny Brown is also really, really good. I think he's the MVP of the episode, and he basically kind of carries the episode in a sense. He carries the action. Really, really great job. There's counterpoints to that. These good performances by these good actors are kind of wasted. I find that the overall plot is very meh. I could kind of take it or leave it. It almost seems, like the kind of plot that would be on an ordinary cop show. That's how I see it. The antagonists, the characters themselves, are also very meh and kind of one-dimensional. And I think the reason for that is because, and I'm going to kind of move over to the bad category here. It's going to be a little bit of a point-counterpoint. I think the reason that there's so much kind of meh in this episode, which I never kind of noticed before, is that the mission is very vague and nebulous. The voice on tape basically tells us that the mission is to, protect Metula and make him move up in the organization. Just to take a little bit of a sidebar, one of the things that I'm not that good at, but I try and continue to work on it, is goal setting. And one of the things you want to do when you want to set a goal or an objective is to make it clear. and this is not a clear goal. Okay, so we have to protect Metula. Well, what does that mean exactly? I guess you could kind of say, protect his cover. I think those words were actually used. Now that I think about it, protect his cover and make him move up in the organization. I don't know. It's. I don't like the verbiage. Let's just put it that way. It's very vague, as I said. It also means that, by necessity, Dietrich is a dead man. The only way that Metula is going to move up and basically become a lieutenant, and the second in command, basically, for Lawton, is if Dietrich is completely out of the way. And in an organization such as this, there's only one way that happens. I suppose it could be that Lawton's going to fire him, but, it's obviously not that simple at the higher levels. I think it's pretty clear that Dietrich is going to get offed here. So, and I've mentioned in the past that that's kind of the sign of not a great plot, when right from the get-go we're talking about, somebody's going to have to really just be out of the way for this mission to be successful. I also find that it's very unclear to me, and also kind of nebulous, about the level at which Metula is kind of smartened up to the mission. He's an agent. Obviously, he has contact with other agents. But, I don't know, it was just never kind of made clear. I guess Barney kind of clues him in, and that's kind of why Barney is there with him in this episode, because Metula kind of seems to know what's going to happen. He seems to have an idea of what the IMF is doing and what they're planning, but we don't see that, and that's kind of bothersome, because I just don't get it. Like, it would seem to me, traditionally, that if the mission involves protecting Metula's cover, the team would kind of isolate themselves and not smarten Metula up to what's going on. But towards the end, clearly he has the tape of Dietrich talking to Jim, which he could only have been given that by Willie. So clearly he kind of is in cahoots with the IMF. Even a brief scene somewhere, somehow, and maybe it wouldn't have been possible just because Metula couldn't risk being actually seen with the people in the IMF. I guess that's possible, but then I don't know. Maybe that could have just been made clear. It would have taken 5 or 10 seconds just to throw a sentence of dialogue into this to say Barney's going to talk to Metula, or, we can't have Metula do this, or we can't have Metula do that. I don't know. I just think that would have made some sense. I think it would have been better. Some other things that I didn't like. I don't understand why Jim had to go through the operation that he did. Everybody remembers from season 3, The Heir Apparent. One of, if not the best episode of the series. In that one, Cinnamon Carter was given some sort of drops or something. It wasn't nothing invasive, in order to be blind, for playing her part in that episode. Why couldn't they do that here? Are these guys more sophisticated, maybe? And Jim does mention, so I mean, it's not too bad. They at least talked about this and laid a bit of foundation for it. Because Casey does ask him, like, gee, isn't there some other way? And Jim does say, no, we can't take the risk. I can sort of forgive it, but it is kind of weird. It seems like something, it's a little bit of a contrivance. Although I will kind of forgive it a little bit, as they did lay a bit of foundation for it. But I kind of didn't like that. I know it's critical to what the writers wanted to convey in this episode. Yeah, so I mean, I guess it is what it is. But I don't know. I think it could have been done another way, and that just bugged me a little bit, especially since they have that precedent in the past. Another big problem here is that because this episode is so Jim focused, the other IMF members really don't do a whole heck of a lot. Even Casey, I mean, this is her first episode here. She gets a little bit of time and she's introduced. but again, not a heck of a lot. And Barney and Willie do very little here. Barney is basically just Matula's sidekick for all intents, and Willie, is just kind of there to, keep an eye on Jim. So that's kind of weird. I kind of don't like that vibe, where there's teamwork, but it's really, really unbalanced teamwork. But I guess that's the price you pay for having an episode where one character is so heavily featured. Other than that, I don't think I have a whole heck of a lot more to say. I've discussed the antagonist and I've discussed the plot, and a lot of it is really, really meh. The good in the past when I've watched this episode has kind of outweighed a lot of these things. But they're a lot more noticeable to me. I guess maybe part of that is just all of the watching and thinking and critiquing that I've done, so that I'm a little bit more in tune with what to look for in these episodes. So I'm going to stick by my grade of C+ for this one. And I guess that's about it. Well, here we are going on into season 6. And it's, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a mixed bag. All these seasons are at some level. And onward and upward. What else can I say? Thank you for watching. Always much appreciated. And please like this review video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I thank the recent subscribers. The total is climbing, and I really do appreciate that. Please leave your comments, and those are always appreciated as well. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.